Welcome to Illini Central on STL Sports Center. This is Mike Central. This is Mike Kegley with Jonathan Kerr, Brad Sturdy. It's also I on the Illini Live. Hey, let's talk about this second half really quickly here. The Illini end up winning this one 38 to nothing, 358 yards to 204. 196 yards passing to 91, 162 yards rushing to 113. Quite a turnaround by Illinois. I thought the defense locked things down, and the Illini have turned into quite the third quarter bullies. Jonathan, what did you think they did differently to adjust for some of the problems that were going on in the first half?
Well, I'm not as smart as a lot of people think that I'm not. But I will say this: just like with Duke, when you went into halftime, things seemed very precarious. Just like when they came out, and it looks like they basically eliminated what basically Western Michigan had the opportunity to try doing in the first half. So from that standpoint going forward, I think the team is very well coached up, and I think a lot of great. I'm not being echoed, by the way.
You're getting a little bit of that.
Okay, I'm not sure if I can control that. But I think the biggest thing in the last 3 games, they make very good adjustments at covering up a lot of the deficiencies. It looks like they kind of something simple Western Michigan team kind of sink into kind of a normal of a pass rush. But from that standpoint, I thought it worked well. I think they got something to do based on the first half. I think the first half is giving Indiana a lot of momentum in terms of game planning. So we'll wait and see, right? A week from now,
Yeah, I think we're really going to see an interesting matchup next week as we look at the two teams. Indiana has literally played high school level competition. Illinois has beat what I think is an impressive Duke team, and then has rolled over some teams they're supposed to roll over. Brad, is this a different world when Illinois plays two games that are relatively blasé and they blow the doors off of teams that admittedly aren't as good, but this is kind of what we've wanted Illinois to do for decades, is actually blow teams out they were supposed to.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, they took care of business. What are they? These two games are 90-3 in the two games. I mean, that's what you want to do against Western Illinois and Western Michigan. Now, next week's a different animal. I do believe that Indiana is going to be a tough test. It's going to be a raucous environment. It's going to be a tougher road game than Duke was. So I don't think they can afford to have a first half again like they have the last 2 weeks. I think they're going to have to come out and be better. But I thought in the second half they were really good when you look at total yards, like 232 to 71 or something like that. So I think when that happens, that's the kind of thing that that shows that they have the ability, that they're able to wear teams down. And I think they can do that against Indiana too. But I do feel like maybe I think that they need to, just be more physical. I thought, they got Caden Fagan out, the couple of tosses, and he's able to get going downhill. I also think sometimes when he gets going downhill, but it seems like when he's in delay and doing that kind of, I don't know how you would say it, but like like you delay or hesitation plays, he's not hitting the hole hard, and that's not his strength. Now Valentine, he's more shifty, so he's able to, he's more explosive on that first step, I think, and so that's why he's able to be maybe a little better sometimes in those roles. But I don't know, that's something they got to figure out, especially moving forward against teams like USC and Indiana and Ohio State and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think the other thing that is interesting is Valentine's a little bit of a spark plug at the same time, because he is actually out there, and and he hits people, he gets excited, he makes things happen. I found that to be kind of a refreshing thing, and you don't really expect that coming from a running back. You expect that, that type of, or at least not a guy his size and his speed. Jonathan, any thoughts that came through your mind as we were watching Illinois really in that third quarter pretty much take total control of the game?
Well, like I said a minute ago, I get the impression that Illinois coaching staff makes a pretty good adjustment. And when you're playing in a team that's physically inferior to you, once you kind of make the first test match, which in college usually takes a quarter, not 2 quarters, come the third quarter, I think they realized what was going to work and what wasn't. What I would like to see going forward, I look back at some of the Georgia Tech and the Clemson game today. And I think I think Georgia Tech ran kind of a power O with the offense, with the quarterback. They may have ran that play about 20 yards or 20 different times today. A lot of times, if you originate movement off the line of scrimmage, a lot of times your down blocks and pulling around can create leverage, create openings. I haven't seen a whole lot of that from Illinois, so I'd be curious to see if they may try implementing something like that against Indiana. You definitely need to show a wrinkle up front. So let's see if that's something that they do to create movement, leverage, and bigger hole in the running game.
Yeah, Brad, I thought that Luke Altmaier, obviously he got better protection in the second half, but I think they took some of the suggestions you guys were talking about, rolled him out a little bit, and he responded pretty well to that. I thought he was much more accurate. In fact, when he got up to 11 in a row, I thought his streak was stopped pretty much by a drop as opposed to an errant pass.
Yeah, they played faster too. You notice they didn't sub on the first scoring drive. It was 5 plays, 53 yards. Didn't sub. Same guys on the field, and I think that was just a change of pace, and I think that was good. And Luke responded. I think the receivers responded, and I think that's another adjustment. It allowed them to not maybe it wore them down. I think it wears them out. The defensive line could not get as much pressure then. But so I think that was good. The one thing I also thought that they took a couple, they looked down the field a little bit. You saw that throw. There was one to, I believe there was one to Beatty and one to who was the other one? But they kind of trying to stretch the defense a little bit, get down and I think that opened up, and then you can go under. So then you can do the dump downs, and you're gaining 10 yards or whatever it is. So, and then it also opened up some running lanes. And so I was really, I thought in the second half, Barry Lenny did a good job in the second half. He just needs to do that in the first half. I think Luke kind of likes to be in control when he's out there. I mean, he has good command of the offense, good command of what's going on. I think he likes when he keeps those guys and he can just play fast. I think that fits what he wants to do, and it makes the reads a little bit easier sometimes too, because there's not a change in personnel all the time.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. One of the things that I wanted to say too is you're looking at this particular podcast. Of course, this is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is America's top-rated sportsbook app, and it's coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. So our Missouri fans who enjoy the Fighting Illini can get $300 in bonus bets when they launch on December 1st. And all you have to do is download now, place a $5 bet when we go live, and DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything that you need to elevate your game day. In-game live betting, lightning fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when they officially go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions. Safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live on December 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. So, folks, you got your opportunity to DraftKings. Let's take advantage of it. When we look at what is going on in terms of Illinois being prepared, Brad, did you see anything in the running game and the offensive game that makes you feel like they're ready for the Hoosiers next week?
Well, the one thing I think, and I think Jonathan kind of hinted at this too, that it's very vanilla. They didn't do anything. They're not doing anything special right now because they don't need to do anything special. So I think it's just like this. What we're going to do, we're going to line up, we're going to smash it and see what happens. And I think that's kind of what they did. And against Indiana, I think you'll see maybe some more misdirection, maybe some more. They had a couple of quarterback bootlegs, which seem to be very effective. With teams are really crowding to that running back, and Luke's able to get, even if he gets 5 or 6 yards, it's really effective at kind of slowing down that guy's collapsing on the ends. So little things like that. So I think we'll see that. The one thing I feel like the offensive line, though, I think they got to let those big guys eat a little bit, let them push, right? Let them go forward, let them drive a little bit early in that game. Because I think in the second half, you see them, they get more push, they get more drive. But I feel like sometimes in the first half, it's a lot of delays, and they're trying to find holes, this and that, whatever. So I don't know, just kind of my thoughts there.
Yeah, Jonathan, any thoughts in terms of that? You're watching this from a little bit different view. Are we seeing a team that you think is prepared now after not perfect games, but still? The funny thing is we're sitting at 3-0. The Illini are, and one can say that they played well, but they haven't played well for a whole game.
That's very well said, and I'm hoping you're not seeing 2 or 3 in me at this point. I'm hoping
we're good. We're good.
Okay. Yeah. Bottom line, you got to look at the positives. We are 3-0. I think we played a stronger schedule than Indiana has at this point. Typically, this kind of goes back to even training camps. Different defenses are usually a lot more ahead of offenses, even when it comes to the beginning of the year versus middle and late of the year. I think offenses take a longer time to just adjust and adapt. That's going to continue to be my worry or my concern with what they can do up front. I think it's correctable at this point. Injuries obviously will play a big part, but the big thing I want to see is, when you see Luke Altmaier take a big hit, I don't know about you guys, but it almost seems like you hold your breath every time he does take a big hit. So I think if we can eliminate the exposing him from a standpoint like that, shore up a lot of the communication up front. I mean, Illinois has a chance to do some great things this year, and like I said, the biggest I think we're going to find out a lot about this team a week from tonight, and so I think we just kind of take it from there and wait and see.
Yeah, Brad, probably.
Jonathan, I got to ask you a question. Luke Altmaier, you talked about taking hits. I hear that he can't actually slide. Like, he's really bad at sliding. So that's interesting. I think that's something they need to practice. Maybe it's maybe go out to the baseball field and take some slides. I don't know, because definitely struggles with that. He takes too many, even on the out of bounds there, he took that hard hit. He's running. I mean, you're just thinking, just go down, just go down. So
we saw that against Western Illinois, and it was just like, boy, I think I made the reference. If it's 4th and 3, and Luke's got to go into the fire against an Ohio State defensive line, okay, that's one thing. But my goodness, pick your battles, and hopefully hopefully the coaching staff will get through to him. I guess we'll have to find out and see.
Yeah, I basically, Brad's going to get tired of this, but he had to listen to all last year me whining every time that Luke didn't get out of bounds or slide when nobody was near him. I'm a big believer in that quarterback is gold, and you don't want him touched, and I don't want him spindled, mutilated, anything. So we wanted.
Hey, here's the thing: Mike would have whined about something else. If he wasn't whining about that, he would have whined about something else. So
You know
it's
what I
just
would about Brad?
par for the course.
Yeah, what I would have whined about is, if you take a look at when you're on the internet, Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everybody vulnerable. So, what do data brokers do? Where they take your name, your contact information, your social security number, home address, even information about your family members could be compiled by these data brokers and sold online. So, as somebody who has an active online presence, it's really important to me to make sure that I'm not one of those people who is a victim of identity theft or harassment or doxing. If if it hasn't happened to you or it hasn't happened to me, probably all of us know someone who has had it happen to them, and Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount to our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting HIT to 64000. The only way to get 20% off is to text HIT to 64000. That's HIT to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. All right, so wanted to make sure you guys are aware of that, because I would complain about that if that happened to me. The other thing is, and I'm going to ask both of you guys this, is Aaron Henry a little bit underrated for how this defense has been playing? Now, again, I realize that 2 out of the 3 teams weren't highly regarded, but they really held down a Duke team that won 9 games last year. I look at the performance of this Illini defense, and man, they are in the right place at the right time most of the time. Brad, what are your thoughts on Aaron Henry and what he's doing with the defense?
Well, I think he's doing a good job. I think the hard thing though is ask me about this in 2 weeks after they played Indiana and USC, because although Duke does have had an explosive offense, we've seen them struggle a little bit even tonight against Tulane. But I would say this: I feel like they've done what they were supposed to do. They were good enough. They were solid against Duke, who's a quality opponent, and they've been fantastic against Western Michigan and Western Illinois. And so that's what they're supposed to do. So they've done what they're supposed to do. So I think he deserves a good grade for that. I think next week's going to be the big and USC will be big tests to kind of see where they're at, how they've developed. I really like their back end. They've got some NFL guys, Matthew Bailey, Miles Scott. They've got some NFL guys. And then they've got the front seven. Gabe Akas is obviously an NFL guy too. So a lot of guys have a chance to play in that 3-letter league, and we'll see how it comes out. But if the other guys, I do think the other thing about tonight was they had so many guys sitting out. That does hurt them. They're playing a lot of second string guys and guys that, which does make a difference. So now you're going to be pretty much healthy. I think Clark might be the only guy really out next week. Hopefully Scott's injury, he had a little tweaked his ankle there at the end of making that pass breakup. So if he's good to go, then I'll pretty much should have everyone ready to go next week.
Jonathan, what were your thoughts on just watching the overall performance of this defense over 3 weeks now?
I think on the perimeter, this team plays with the speed that is different than in a lot of years. Watching Illinois football, I think with Gabe, I don't know if you have a second player who can create havoc up front, but at the same time, he should be somebody who should be able to take up 2 players from a game plan standpoint. That part of it, I think, is very encouraging. They don't appear to have a lot of deficiencies up front. I think their speed on the outside and in the secondary, I think, is very positive. So with that said, injuries are going to play a key, whether you have them or whether you don't. But like I said, let's hope that we can keep everybody upright as much as possible and go from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the way to look at it. We saw Hank Beatty get free a couple times today. They really didn't do that much special. Ashton Hollins came out, played well. I thought Hudson Clement did well. What were your thoughts overall on the wide receivers for the game tonight, Brad?
I agree. I was looking at an interesting stat. Hank Beatty has 20 targets and 19 catches this year. I think that's good. He's throwing the ball like more than maybe. But no, I thought Ashton Hollins really stepped up with Justin Bowick, out. I thought Malik Elzy had a really nice catch too. And Ashton Hollins with he catches those 2 plays almost back to back for the touchdown. I think that was good to see that from him. Shows what he can do. Hudson Clement had a couple. The one-handed catch was really nice.
Yeah.
The ball's a little bit behind him. Goes back and makes the adjustment. He actually had one where I think he had that diving catch where it did bounce, but it was really, really nice effort to try and make that catch. I don't know what else he could have done, but I think they're getting more comfortable. They're getting better at the wide receiver position now. Outside, obviously, we know what Hank's done, but it's the other guys that as they step up and get better and better. I think that's really cool. To see them kind of take that next step.
Yeah, I thought so as well. Jonathan, when you looked at the line play in the second half, did any of the players stand out to you? Was there anything that you saw that maybe one of us just normal people haven't had to make a living in those trenches might not notice, or anything jump out like that for you?
I thought they settled down to a certain degree. I thought they were able to, once they got the passing game opened up, I think it kind of opened up the running game to a certain degree. I think they utilized the leverage in a lot of ways with the running game, not necessarily from a coming off the ball standpoint, but I thought it was a little bit more controlled in terms of how they were able to kind of hold their own with their opponent. That part of it, a lot of the things in the first half seemed like, going back to the Duke first half, seemed like kind of like a jailbreak, right? And then second half, you're watching the game and you're like, well, what has changed? Well, I think the biggest thing that's changed is, again, I think you have a very smart coaching staff on our side that will be the ones that can make the difference. But I think they utilized the passing game in a certain degree to open up the running game. And then once they kind of did that, I think it eliminated a lot of what Western Michigan was going to try doing in terms of run stunts, because I think they probably figured that Illinois was going to try to come out running the ball a lot, which I think we looked at and we said, yeah, they did. And I think Illinois kind of backed up in that degree. So I think once they opened up the passing game in the second half, I think it made the defense kind of play more true. Again, I think you're going to have to wait and see what Indiana's defense is going to do. I think they've had 2 games to scout Illinois and kind of get some ammunition in terms of trying to create chaos. But let's hope the third time's a charm in the first half anyway.
So I'm going to ask both of you guys a kind of a loaded question here. But as I watch this Illinois team, it seems like this is an Illinois team that's more comfortable setting up the run by throwing. Have we turned into the San Francisco 49ers all of a sudden here?
I don't disagree with you. I think they've been better. But I think some of it is it's what you're given. What the defense gives you and takes away. They're really trying to, Brett's always talking about running the football. We got to control the line of scrimmage, which I agree with. But when they put 8 or 9 guys up there, it's difficult to do that, and especially when they're playing very vanilla, very predictable. Well, as you see that, I think as you see this moving forward, the one thing they need to do is kind of maybe use some. I think play action. They haven't done a ton of play action. I think play action can be effective when teams are stacking that way and sending that safety up. So, and then get over the top, get some seam routes or cross even crossing routes. Sometimes deep crosses. Like I think they're there, especially when they're doing that. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they adjust against Indiana. See what Indiana does. A lot of teams been running some kind of different blitz packages. Duke ran a few. We saw it in Western Michigan tonight with some different blitz packages. So how do they handle those, and maybe that'll affect the way they attack against Indiana or USC or whoever.
Yeah, what did you think, Jonathan?
Oh, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe is it this year or maybe even last year was the first year that the quarterback and the offensive coordinator were able to communicate via their helmet up until 15 seconds in the play count. Is that, or am I misinterpreting that?
Yeah, I think that was it. Brad, you went cold on us.
I believe that's right. Second year, I think they've been able to.
Yeah. There were, I think the more you watch football, especially from an NFL standpoint, you see this perfected a lot more, where teams can audible a lot more easily. And again, you're talking about the best of the best, and you're talking about older players and things of that sort. There were some plays that definitely, Luke, it would have been nice for them to be able to have the chance to audible out of, because they simply didn't have, in my opinion, the right personnel to block against them. Are you still hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
I can't see you, but as long as you can see me, I guess we're okay. So as long as, I would hope and expect with, Coach Looney and Altmaier being in year 3, my goal is to see them be able to find a way to check out of some of these different fronts, as they, in my opinion, they're going to know that a lot of these defenses are going to bring a lot of crazy looks to them, and at some point there's only so many different crazy looks. So hopefully the fact that they're seeing all this chaos at this point, hopefully it will allow them to hunker down and find ways to maybe audible out of them better than they have in the first half of the last 2 games, for sure.
Yeah, it seems like it's been a little bit crazy, and you expect a little bit more consistency out of the offense, especially one that's as experienced as the line for Illinois. The other thing I thought was interesting tonight is I thought Crimmins had a nice job on a few of the punts. I think we kind of take that for granted as Illini fans. We've had pretty reasonable punting, but boy, when he needs to get a hold of one, he was sending them flying and making the the punt returner go backwards. I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that, Brad.
We were actually, Matt Stevens and I were sitting there, and we were talking about that up here in the press box. They hit a couple nice punts, because I had said, I thought he was, early on the season, I thought he shanked a couple and just wasn't looking like he should have been. You know what I mean? Because he's supposed to, he's a really good punter. Just kind of got a slow start, but now I thought tonight he had some really nice kicks, and even the ones that weren't as long, there was no return. So if you get 42 yards, there's no return. Even though the average may not be as high, it's still a really effective thing there. So, yeah, so I thought he was good tonight, and that's it's good to see. I mean, as guys get comfortable and things go through this, I think this is really good to build up to the next game, where it's Indiana and USC, et cetera, et cetera. So can't have any kind of mistakes if you're going to beat the Hoosiers over there in Bloomington next week.
Yeah, totally agree. A couple things that were interesting, because the first half were the stats were so close. Illinois totally one-sided the second half. Ended up with an advantage 20-12 in first downs. Illinois was 7 for 12 on third down and held Indiana. I'm hoping it's Indiana next week. Held Western Michigan to 3 for 14 on third down. And basically the total plays, Illinois was looking at 63 to 58, but the yards per play was 5.7 for Illinois, 3.5 for Western Michigan, and you saw that Illinois was 6 for 6 in the red zone. So what we saw last week was Illinois was very effective when they had the opportunity to, score. Jonathan, is there anything different about when you get the ball in the red zone for an offensive lineman? Is there a different mindset? Does the defense play different when they have less of the field to defend?
Well, to a certain degree, the field shrinks, right? So, I mean, there's it limits the offense to a certain degree. I think to a larger degree, it kind of brings into a mentality that when you're in that red zone, that you have a better confidence about whatever it is play that you're running. One thing I wanted to kind of touch out that might not quite answer everything that you were saying, about, Beatty. Beatty is a player that I think over time teams are going to try to focus on, because he's obviously the number one. I think Beatty by the end of the year is going to have the name recognition of somebody, of former players in the past who just always people can think about and remember, like a Michael Dudek, even though his career was cut really short.
Yep.
The big thing with Beatty is if they can find a secondary player to kind of piggyback on his route running, his ability to catch the ball. And I mean, you look at Beatty, he's almost to the point when you watch him catch a ball as a punt, you'd be shocked if he ever dropped it. I think if we can find an understudy, if you want to use that word, who can really develop into a really solid number two, Beatty, like I said, Beatty's stats right now are off the charts. But I think if Illinois can find a way to complement him, you might find defenses finding a way to back up once they realize there's a secondary threat in the receiving core.
Yeah, I've been kind of surprising, but Colin Dixon has played well. He blocks fantastic. Just hasn't been able to get as many open looks out there, and certainly Hudson Clement, it was really impressive. You can tell, like I said, Brandon is listening and watching on YouTube, but Hudson Clement with that catch was excellent, and he Hudson and Beatty kind of remind me of one another, two types of bulldogs there on either side of the field if you had them both out there at the same time. And I'm going to say that if Illinois has to use the passing game to open up things for them, I think you're going to see more and more of these wide receivers starting to put together some impressive stats. Brad?
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I want to comment on over here, talking about, people are always talking about what would this team have done, what that team have done. I mean, in Indiana winning 73-0, and they're mentioning that stuff. Well, the first 2 weeks, Indiana, like against Kennesaw State, was like 21-6, and then you look at Penn State today was 13-0 with a minute to go in the first half against Villanova, and they're ranked second in the country. I mean, you're going to have days. I mean, Texas won 27-10 today over UTEP. I mean, you're not going to be it's not easy, and so. I think this is the hard thing. It's hard to be up every single time you come out to play a football game in this in this era where, especially when you're playing a team, here's the thing: Western Michigan, Illinois could have played like 10 quarters and they might have scored a touchdown. I mean, this was not a good offense, so they knew they didn't have to be great on offense, and but so the sense of urgency wasn't there. They came out in the second half. You saw that third quarter, 3 quarters, 3 drives, 3 touchdowns. They had a sense of urgency. They did a better job. So I think it's very difficult to say what would this team have done because everybody has those slow starts. That's why we have games that are closer than they should be, and that's part of it. So now they just got to but they're right in that you can't have a slow start against Indiana next Saturday.
Yeah. How does this team? What do you think this team needs now, Jonathan? Going into this game now, you're going to look at most likely Indiana will move into the top 20. Illinois, will be at least number 9. Where do you think? What do you think this team needs now that you've seen 3 games? Illinois can't control Indiana, but from the Illinois side, what do they need to do?
Well, I hate to be Debbie Downer, and you can cue the old Saturday Night Live. Wah, wah.
Yeah.
And Brad, I know you have children that are playing sports and things like that. I think it goes down to grade school, high school, college, and professional. Teams play down to the level of competition. And the only coach I think may have nipped that in the bud, or the best coach who may ever have nipped that in the bud is probably Nick Saban. Because there's just stories about how he would never let an inferior opponent he would never let his team play down to them. To a certain degree, Illinois is not at that point where they are world beaters yet. So I would tell you, arguably, one of the biggest challenges that this coaching staff has, because let's assume Illinois stays at 9, or maybe they move up to 7 or 6, or if they win against Indiana, they're probably going to be a top 5 team. And, there's noise getting in between the ears, right? I think anyone knows a lot of times your best way of kind of being able to reset and refocus is when you get humbled. I think all 3 of us would be very, very surprised if this team never lost a game this year. If they did, we would be talking about them having a first round bye into the playoffs. The part of me deep down is this team probably needs to get humbled in a way that's going to allow them to realize that, the old saying is you're never as good as it seems, you're never as bad as it seems. When was the last time Illinois was in the top 10? Was it 2001? Last time they were ranked number 5 was when I was a freshman in 1990. I mean, we got to start going way back into the record books. So the biggest thing I'm concerned about is them, and this is where the coaching staff is going to be able to really come in, I think, and it's going to be a hard task. As long as they keep winning, it's going to be hard for them to kind of, realize how good they can be versus how good they think they're going to be.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about that. One of the hardest things to do as a coach is to get your kid, because the kids aren't dumb. Illinois players aren't dumb. They know that Western Michigan's not on their level. It's very difficult to get them to understand that they still have to have the same attention to detail, the same sense of urgency. It's a difficult thing. That's one of the differences. That's the differentiator sometimes between the great coaches and the good coaches, is being able to do those things. So you're right. That's why probably Saban's probably GOAT in college football right now.
I'm sure Caleb DeBoer has never heard that.
No, he's wondering. He's right now going, Nick, can I get some advice? But no, it's so I think you're exactly right. And, you hope that maybe this kind of some of the stuff they've had to face, the adversity of not playing as well or whatever against Duke, that will help them, Indiana. But I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't come out with a different level of urgency against Indiana. I mean, I feel like
Sure.
should. I mean, if they're
Should.
competitors, should. If they're competitors, they will. So I think that's very intriguing going forward to see how they, how that works. But I think Brett Bielema is a really good football coach. So I think if there's a guy who can do it, I think he'll find a way.
Yeah, and
really
I don't know
quickly,
what you
sorry to
guys-
interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think if this coaching staff truly figures out that the running game struggles at an early point in the system, and I think, Brad, you talked about it, a lot of times the passing game can set up the running game. And so, if they're realistic with how things are starting at the beginning of the game, like I said, a lot of times if you start opposite of what a lot of teams will think, it makes the running game go a whole lot more. So maybe that is a way for this team to start going about their game plan, at least offensively.
Yeah, and I just wonder, from a standpoint of this, is Indiana going to, Illinois talked about after playing Duke that it took them a bit to get used to the speed and size of Duke after playing Western Illinois. Is Indiana going to have, they practice against themselves, but are they going to have any challenges adapting when they play the Illini because they haven't played somebody anywhere near Illinois' level?
How many players have come back on Indiana's team from last year, or at least how many new players? I think it's a pretty large number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Not many returners.
Not many returners, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, admittedly, I haven't seen a lot of Indiana. I don't think even if you watched film on Indiana last year, I don't know if it would do any good. Was it lightning in a bottle? It's hard to say. When you keep changing the roster to that degree, I don't know if you ever know what you have until you have it. And with you saying Indiana hasn't played anyone worth a darn, this should be. I think we're going to find out one way or the other what we have here at the end of next weekend, right?
Brad, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think he's spot on. I agree. I think that I don't know how you. Well, we say you can't simulate. You know what I mean? Like, because even in practice, you're playing against each other. It's not the same. So I don't know that you can simulate. So, but we'll see. This isn't Kurt Cignetti's a really good coach too.
Yeah.
So this is going to be fun. I'm excited about this game. I know one of the things is you're going to have to play at a different level. I think Illinois is going to have to play at a different level, like they did the second half against Duke, if they want to, win this game. And if they do that, I think they got a great chance to win it. But if they don't, well, we're going to be 3-1, and then you better beat USC.
Yeah, and USC looks really.
We're talking about a night game, right? Next weekend.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. 6
So,
p.m.
It's one thing about playing on the road at 11 a.m. where maybe half the students are still sleeping. Everybody's
now they're inebriated.
But you hope that they're passed out by 9. So at the end of the game, they're not around.
Yeah. Drink so early that you won't make it into the gates.
The big problem is, Jonathan, is they drink so early that they've recovered by 6.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That second wind you get in college, you're like, I'm feeling pretty good now.
Yeah, it makes you go back and go, wow, yeah, I was Superman back then, right? This will be a great test, not only from finding out who we are, who Indiana is, which I don't think anyone else knows, and you're going to be playing in front of a crazy environment. And if you thought Duke was in a crazy environment, appeared to be, it was still 11 o'clock game, and that place was what, 70% full, maybe.
Yeah.
Indiana's going to be packed. Coming off of last season, we've talked about how this game is going to be the biggest Illinois Indiana game maybe ever.
I would say ever.
So I think it goes without question is that you have to find a way to not start the way you did tonight and the way you did against Duke. And if you can start decent or even average, which I don't think anyone can say that we've done at this point with the last two games, I like to think that we have the coaching staff to make it even better. So let's try not to make it too hard on ourselves. I really feel confident that our coaching staff makes very good second half, adjustments. So let's just, if that means passing more, setting up the run, great. But I think it goes without question. Saturday night, full house. We need to not.
It's just like it's just a common thing. We've got, two highly ranked Indiana and Illinois teams playing football against each other, just as we all expected.
Exactly.
So it should be fun. But it's interesting. You talk about adjustments and different things. I wonder, and I did not watch much of the tape of the Western Michigan play. I'm not going to lie. I didn't watch a ton, but I watched a little bit. I thought they did a really nice job. I think they held Michigan State to 2 points in the second half.
Yes.
So I don't think this is I don't think that, the other thing is, I don't think this is a bad defense. I think they'll be a much better defense than maybe we thought. And so that's interesting as you kind of look forward. Maybe did they do anything different? I don't even know. I mean, maybe they came out with a different look and confused them, and I don't know. They have to adjust faster than halftime, obviously, but I do think that they made the necessary adjustments there at halftime. And like Jonathan mentioned, he's got a really good Barry Lenny's had two really, really good second halves in play calling and adjustments.
And let me say one thing based on that. Last year, if you remember, we started very strong in a lot of games. The Penn State game comes to mind, where we took the ball, scored a touchdown on the first drive, looked very crisp. I recall, I thought there was at least one or two other games that we came out, and kind of how it looks on the NFL, right? These NFL teams come out and they look like world beaters on the first drive, and then in the NFL they make adjustments and you're pretty much figured out by the third drive. And then it's a cat and mouse game. But, last year, I would say we had a pretty good ability to start fast. And maybe we could still do that. We haven't played anyone yet, in my opinion, that has challenged us. But if we can get back to the standpoint of, especially last year, which there were a lot of components, right? Same offensive line, same quarterback, same offensive coordinator. You got Beatty, who's taken the place of Bryant. If we can find a secondary, you got a sledgehammer of a running back like Fagan. Let's see if we can start fast. That would be good.
Yeah. Well, I think people have to remember this is how I look at team sports as I've aged, but every season is really a journey, and you don't know if you're going to end up in a better place or a worse place than you started. But I do think that this is a pretty developmental coaching staff, and we usually see growth in players throughout the season. I really am hopeful that this team will be better by the end of the year. Of course, you have to be a little bit fortunate. You don't want to have injuries. And you have to have like I said, you have to have sometimes the ball bounces in a good fashion. You saw Purdue tonight scored a touchdown on a double pass play where USC thought the ball was incomplete, but it counted as a lateral, and off he went to the races. So that was kind of a crazy thing. Well, folks, we are pushing up now close to the
one thing I do
game.
want to say, Mike. I want you to know that the winner of the Indiana Illinois game will please play Vanderbilt for the national title at the end of the year.
That would be just fantastic.
That's the way it's going to be. 3-0 with 20-plus point wins. First time since 20-plus point wins. First time since 1930 for Vanderbilt.
And did they beat the vaunted South Carolina team?
They did badly. because Sellers got hurt, so
Ah,
it obviously changes things.
yes. So, folks, we are going to switch over to the Illini guys channel as opposed to the STL Sports Central channel because the Cardinals coverage is coming up, and certainly while the Illini are massive in Champaign and in the state of Illinois, the Cardinals are king down in St. Louis. So we are going to get off of this channel and go over to our channel. So if you want to just take a little bit of a 2-minute breather, we will be back on the other side, and we will be talking a little bit more as we are waiting on the man, the myth, the legend, Matt Stevens, to come up from the locker room and give us an idea of how the team and the players feel about it. So we will be back over on that one in about 2 minutes. See you then.